I basically applied for a job as CEO back in 2014, and at the time I'd just finished with a major mining services organisation called Bureau Veritas, and where I was commuting back and forth to Brisbane each week, and it was the right time. I think the planets aligned for me, where I was able to find a job that enabled me to give something back to the community, and also to tap into the experience I'd had over 25 years in the food industry in South Australia. The initial thing was to tap into, reconnect with the food industry. So I knew quite a lot of the players, and a lot of them moved from one, it's like musical chairs, they moved from one business to another. So it was to try to reconnect back with the food industry and familiarise myself with the main principles of good food businesses, which is food safety, transport, logistics. And then it was looking at how that applied to a not-for-profit organisation such as Foodbank. And it was fairly readily obvious early in the piece that it was not a not-for-profit business. It was more what I like to call a business for purpose, as opposed to a business for profit. So the level of professionalism and the level of detail that needed to be gone into in strategic planning, resource planning, financial sustainability was exactly the same as one would do into a normal business. So my initial thing was to look at where the weaknesses were in the businesses, where we felt that we needed to go, as well as where the board wanted to get to, and then to look at setting up the structure and the resources within the business to be able to do that. 4 years, nearly 4 years, yeah. The demand has certainly grown. We've seen anywhere from 10 to 20% increase in demand every year, and that's if we're a supermarket business, that'd be fantastic. In a business such as ours, where we're dealing with trying to provide a service to people, that's not a good thing. We are somewhat of the barometer of the effectiveness of the society in looking after the most vulnerable, I believe. Unfortunately, some governments don't necessarily want to hear that all the time. So we've also then had to go about, and part of our first strategic plan that we did from 2014 to 2017 was to look at how we could get more food into the operation. And we had a number of very specific targets that we went after locally, and also as part of our national chain. And then the fruit and veg program was another very specific one, where we wanted to get from 100,000 kilos a year about 6 years ago up to 1 million kilos a year. And we've achieved that 2 years ahead of the plan. So and that was a very specific program that we had to set up with Lee Royans, who did a lot of work setting up our produce market partnership, but also in striking up relationships with all the farmers, the growers, the wholesalers, to be able to get the mix of fruit and veg that we need coming through at the appropriate times. And we've been very, very fortunate to have the support of the South Australian produce market, and also of all their affiliated growers and farmers to be able to get that. In terms of demand, if you live in a regional area, you're 11% more likely to be food insecure. And that's because there's a lack of employment opportunities in the country areas. There's also a lack of welfare support. A lot of the welfare agencies have, particularly in regional areas, have had their national funding squeezed, and there's been a lot of consolidation of those agencies. So where there used to be perhaps 3 or 4 agencies working in an area, there's now one. So they have very limited resources to handle food. So we very specifically targeted our 3 main regional zones, so Whyalla, Mount Gambier and the Riverland, to look for growth in each of those areas. And also in how do we prioritise and identify the regional locations that we needed to get to. So within that time, we're now going to Broken Hill, we're going to the APY lands, we're going to Ceduna on a regular basis. Murray Bridge, even though it's not that far from Adelaide, has a pretty high demand, so we're actually servicing that now as well. So, we've had quite a good deal of success in getting food to the areas that's most needed. The next part of what we're trying to do is the format and the actual method of distribution in those areas, because if we can't rely on the welfare agencies to give the food out, means we've got to if we can't take the mountain to Muhammad, we've got to take Muhammad to the mountain. So we'll set up our own food outlets, what we call food hubs, in priority areas around the state to be able to get the food to the people that most need it.